Jamal was different from most of the kids in his school. He was big, heavy, dark-skinned, and always kept to himself. His quiet nature made him an easy target. Every day, he walked the halls with his head down, pretending not to hear the cruel laughter and whispers, "Fat boy. Black gorilla. Look at him, he can barely breathe when he walks." The bullies never missed a chance to humiliate him. Among them, 3 boys were the worst: Kyle, Mason, and Trent. They enjoyed turning Jamal into the day's entertainment. They shoved him in the hallways, snatched his lunch, and mocked his every move. Jamal never fought back. He simply endured, silently carrying the pain. His mother always told him, "Strength is not in your fists, son. Strength is in your patience." But what no one knew. Jamal had a secret point one afternoon. Behind the school near the empty basketball court, the 3 bullies cornered him. A small crowd of students gathered, eager to watch. Kyle grabbed Jamal's backpack and threw it to the ground. Mason pushed him against the fence. Trent smirked and said loudly, "Look at this fat loser. Bet he cries like a baby again." The crowd laughed. Jamal stayed silent, staring at the dirt beneath his shoes. Then Mason stepped closer, poked Jamal's chest, and shouted, "You don't belong here, you worthless pig." Something inside Jamal snapped. What the bullies didn't know was that Jamal's late father had been a military combat instructor. Since the age of 8, Jamal had been secretly trained in boxing, jiu-jitsu, and street fighting techniques. Though he hated violence, he carried years of ruthless training within him. When Mason shoved him again, Jamal slowly raised his head. His eyes, once filled with fear, now burned with an icy calm. Kyle laughed nervously. "What? The fat boy gonna fight back?" Without warning, Jamal moved. In one swift motion, he grabbed Kyle's wrist, twisted it, and slammed him to the ground. The crowd gasped. Mason lunged at him, but Jamal sidestepped, driving his elbow into Mason's chest, sending him stumbling back. Trent tried to throw a punch, but Jamal blocked it with precision and delivered a brutal strike to his stomach. Trent collapsed, gasping for air. The playground, once full of laughter, was now silent. Jamal stood over the 3 bullies, his chest rising and falling steadily. The look in his eyes was not of anger but of dominance, the cold focus of a fighter who knew he could destroy his opponents if he wished. He leaned down to Kyle, who was trembling on the ground, and said in a low, firm voice, "Never mistake silence for weakness." Then he picked up his backpack, dusted it off, and walked away without looking back. From that day on, no one dared to mess with Jamal. The bullies who once mocked him now avoided eye contact. The students who laughed at him now looked at him with respect and fear. Jamal returned to his quiet self, but everyone knew, behind that silence lived a ruthless fighter no one ever wanted to awaken again. The fight spread like wildfire through the entire school. By the next morning, Jamal's name was on everyone's lips. Students whispered in the hallways, "That fat kid dropped all 3 of them. He moved like a real fighter, man." It was scary. He didn't even look tired. For the first time, Jamal wasn't invisible. But attention wasn't what he wanted. He had always preferred silence, staying in the background. Now, eyes followed him everywhere. Kyle, Mason, and Trent nursed their bruises with both anger and shame. Their pride was shattered. To be beaten publicly, and by someone they always called weak, was unbearable. "We can't let this slide," Mason growled, holding an ice pack to his ribs. Kyle clenched his fists. "We'll hit him when he least expects it. This isn't over." They decided to wait. They wouldn't attack Jamal at school again, too many witnesses. Instead, they planned something darker. A week later, Jamal was walking home after basketball practice. The evening was quiet, the streets dimly lit. As he turned down an alley shortcut, shadows moved behind him. "Going somewhere, fatty?" a voice mocked. Jamal stopped. He knew the voice. Slowly turning, he saw Kyle, Mason, and Trent, but this time, they weren't alone. 2 older boys from the neighborhood stood beside them, tall and rough-looking. Kyle smirked. "You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Tonight, you're not walking away." 5 against 1. The odds were brutal, but Jamal didn't flinch. He dropped his backpack on the ground, rolled his shoulders, and muttered under his breath, "Fine. You want the fighter? You'll get the fighter." Mason charged first. Jamal sidestepped and delivered a sharp knee to his stomach, dropping him instantly. One of the older boys swung wildly, but Jamal ducked, countering with a crushing uppercut that sent the guy staggering back. The fight exploded. Fists, kicks, grunts, and echoes filled the alley. Jamal fought like a machine, calm, precise, ruthless. Every strike was efficient, every movement sharp. Years of training flowed through him like second nature. Within minutes, the bullies were on the ground, groaning in pain. The second older boy, realizing Jamal wasn't ordinary, backed away slowly, fear in his eyes. You're not human," he whispered before running off, breathing heavily. Jamal stood over the defeated bullies. He looked at his bruised knuckles and clenched his jaw. He hadn't just defended himself, he had dominated. And in that moment, he realized something terrifying: the fighter inside him wasn't just strong. He was dangerous. As Jamal walked out of the alley, he noticed a black car parked at the end of the street. Inside sat a man in a suit, watching him closely. When their eyes met, the man smiled and rolled down the window. Impressive moves, kid. Ever thought about putting those skills to real use? Jamal froze. He didn't know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. The night after the alley fight, Jamal couldn't sleep. His knuckles still ached, and his mind replayed every strike, every groan of pain, every face twisted in fear. He didn't regret defending himself, but the look in that man's eyes, sitting in the black car, stayed with him. The next day after school, Jamal found that same car parked near the gates. The tinted window slid down, and the man in the suit motioned for him to come closer. You fight with control, the man said calmly. Not like a street brawler. That's discipline. Training. Jamal narrowed his eyes. Who are you? The man smiled faintly. Name's Mr. Kane. I work with opportunities. I see talent where others see weakness. You've got potential, kid. The kind that can't be wasted. Jamal took a step back. I'm not interested. Kane leaned forward, his voice low. You will be. Because kids like you don't just fight to win. You fight to survive. Word spread about the alley fight. Jamal wasn't just the fat kid anymore, he was a legend. But legends attract enemies. Soon, older boys from different neighborhoods came looking for him, testing him, challenging him. One evening, 3 guys tried to corner him outside a convenience store. Jamal fought them off, but this time, someone was filming. By the next day, the video had gone viral online. The clip showed Jamal moving with deadly precision, dismantling 3 attackers with shocking speed. Comments flooded in: is this even real? That fat kid is a beast. Somebody signed this guy up for UFC. And among the viewers was Mr. Kane. 2 nights later, Jamal returned home to find an envelope slipped under his door. Inside was a card with just 5 words written on it: when you're ready, call me. On the back was a phone number. Jamal stared at it for a long time. His mother's words echoed in his head: strength is in patience, not fists. But deep inside, a fire was burning. Every time he fought, every time he dominated, that fire grew stronger. He picked up his phone. His hand trembled as he dialed the number. The call connected. Kane's voice came through the line, calm and certain: I knew you'd come around. Welcome to the real fight, Jamal. Jamal didn't know it yet, but this was the first step into a world far more dangerous than schoolyard bullies. Underground arenas, brutal fighters, and secrets about his own father's past were waiting for him, and once he entered, there would be no turning back. The number Jamal dialed changed everything. That night, he received a text with an address: midnight. Don't be late. Jamal slipped out of the house while his mother was asleep. The address led him to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The moment he stepped inside, the sound of roaring voices and the smell of sweat and blood filled the air. Hundreds of people crowded around a steel cage. Inside, 2 fighters were tearing each other apart while the crowd cheered and bet on the outcome. Jamal's eyes widened. This wasn't some street fight. This was organized. Brutal. Ruthless. Mr. Kane appeared beside him, dressed in his sleek black suit. Welcome, Jamal. This is the place where strength matters more than words. Here, only fighters survive. Jamal swallowed hard. Why am I here? Kane smiled. Because you belong here. Before Jamal could answer, a man with tattoos covering his arms stepped into the cage, pointing directly at him. Fresh meat, the man roared. Let the fat kid show us what he's got. The crowd erupted. Kane placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. This is your test. Win, and you're in. Lose, and you walk away broken. Jamal's fists clenched. His body trembled, not from fear, but from the familiar fire inside. Stepped into the cage. The tattooed fighter lunged at him with wild swings. Jamal ducked, countering with sharp jabs to the ribs. The crowd gasped at his speed. The man came again, but Jamal trapped his arm, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him into the steel wall. Every movement was precise, every strike calculated. The crowd went from laughter to shock as Jamal dismantled the fighter within minutes. Finally, Jamal delivered a brutal takedown, pinning the man on the floor. The referee rushed in, waving his arms. The fight was over. Silence. Then an explosion of cheers. As Jamal stood in the center of the cage, chest heaving, the crowd chanted his name: Jamal. 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 Mr. Kane watched with a satisfied grin. See? I told you. This is where you were meant to be. But as Jamal raised his head and looked around, he felt something strange inside. For the first time, he wasn't just defending himself. He was enjoying the fight, and that realization scared him more than anything else. After the fight, Cain handed him an envelope stuffed with cash. "Welcome to the underground, Jamal. This is only the beginning." Jamal looked down at the money, then at his bruised hands. He knew he had a choice: walk away now, or step deeper into a world that would change him forever, and deep inside, he knew he was already hooked. Jamal's first underground fight changed everything. The crowd, the adrenaline, the cash, it lit a fire inside him he never knew existed, but the moment he stepped out of that cage, he realized one thing: he was no longer just Jamal, the bullied fat kid. He was becoming someone else. Someone dangerous. Over the next weeks, Jamal fought again and again. Each time, the opponents were bigger, stronger, faster. But each time, Jamal dismantled them with the same cold precision. His name spread through the underground. They gave him a new title: the Ruthless. Crowds cheered for him. Bookies loved him. Fighters feared him, but with every victory, Jamal felt something change inside. The boy who once avoided fights now lived for them. The violence, the cheers, the blood, it was addictive. One night, after another brutal win, Cain approached Jamal in the locker room. "You've got your father's fire," Cain said quietly. Jamal froze. "My father?" Cain smirked. "You think I found you by accident?" "No, Jamal. I knew your father well. He trained soldiers, killers, and he owed me." Jamal's chest tightened. His father had died when he was 10. His mother never spoke of the details. "What do you mean he owed you?" Jamal demanded. Cain's smile widened. "You'll find out. For now, keep fighting. You're not just in the cage for glory. You're paying a debt." Weeks later, Cain arranged Jamal's biggest fight yet. His opponent, Victor Cruz, the reigning underground champion. A monster of a man, 6'5", covered in scars, undefeated in 22 fights. The crowd was insane that night. Bets piled high. Everyone wanted to see if the fat boy could stand against the king. Before the fight, Cain leaned close to Jamal and whispered, "Win this, and you'll control the underground. Lose, and you'll end up like your father." Jamal's eyes burned. "What happened to my father?" Cain only smiled and walked away. The cage door slammed shut. Victor Cruz towered over Jamal, his fists like sledgehammers. "You're not ready, kid," Cruz growled. "I'll break you." The bell rang. Cruz charged like a beast, fists swinging. Jamal ducked, countered, landed a crushing blow to Cruz's ribs. The crowd exploded, but Cruz didn't fall. He laughed. "Good hit. Now let me show you real pain." He slammed into Jamal with terrifying force, pinning him against the steel. Jamal gasped for air. For the first time since he began fighting, Jamal wasn't sure if he could win. Do you want me to make part 6 an intense, blow-by-blow championship fight, blood, sweat, near defeat, but epic comeback, or reveal more about his father's mysterious past and Cain's dark connection during the fight? The cage shook as Victor Cruz slammed Jamal against the steel. The crowd roared like hungry wolves, sensing blood. "Too slow, fat boy," Cruz sneered, his massive fist smashing into Jamal's ribs. Pain exploded through Jamal's chest. For the first time in the underground, Jamal staggered. Cruz was relentless. A storm of punches rained down on Jamal's head, shoulders, and stomach. The crowd's chant shifted. "Cruz. Cruz." Blood trickled from Jamal's lip. His legs wobbled. Cain watched from ringside, arms folded, his expression unreadable. "Is this it?" Cruz growled, throwing Jamal to the ground. "The so-called Ruthless? Pathetic." The referee hovered, ready to stop the fight if flat on the mat. Jamal's vision blurred. The chants faded into echoes. In the haze, a memory returned, his father's voice during training in their backyard. "When you're pinned, when you're broken, when you think it's over, that's when you fight hardest. Because a true fighter doesn't fight to win. He fights because he has no choice." Jamal's fists tightened. His breath steadied. His eyes snapped open. As Cruz raised his arm for a final knockout, Jamal rolled aside, forcing Cruz's fist into the steel cage with a sickening crunch. Cruz roared in pain, clutching his hand. Jamal surged to his feet, eyes blazing. The crowd gasped. They had seen the look before. The Ruthless had awakened. He unleashed a storm of counters, a brutal hook to the jaw, a crushing knee to the stomach, and a spinning elbow that cracked against Cruz's temple. The giant staggered. Jamal grabbed him, twisted his arm into a lock, and with a roar, slammed Cruz onto the mat so hard the cage rattled. The crowd erupted. "Jamal! Jamal! Jamal!" Cruz lay motionless. The referee waved it off. Jamal had done the impossible. He had beaten the undefeated champion. As Jamal's hand was raised in victory, Cain stepped into the cage, clapping slowly. His smile was sharp as a knife. "Just like your father," Cain whispered in his ear. "Do you want to know how he died, Jamal?" "He fought in the same cage. He won, but he refused to fight for me again. That's why he didn't make it home. Jamal's blood ran cold. His body shook, not from exhaustion, but rage. Cain grinned. You're mine now. Whether you like it or not. The crowd cheered Jamal's name, but inside, he felt chained. He had won the title, but at what cost? And deep inside, a vow began to form: if Cain had anything to do with his father's death, Jamal would one day destroy him. Do you want me to make part 7 focus on Jamal's rise as the underground king, with darker temptations and bigger enemies, or shift toward his revenge arc against Cain, where he uncovers the full truth about his father? The crowd was still chanting his name when Jamal walked out of the cage, the champion's belt slung over his shoulder. But inside, victory felt hollow. Cain's words echoed in his mind: your father fought in this cage. He refused me. That's why he didn't make it home. Jamal's fists tightened. If Cain had anything to do with his father's death, then Jamal's fight was far from over. For weeks, Jamal was paraded around the underground as the new king. His picture was on posters, his fights drew massive crowds, and the money flowed like water. Everyone wanted a piece of him, but the more famous he became, the deeper he sank into Cain's control. Cain treated him like a weapon, scheduling brutal fights, pushing him to his limit. Pain makes you sharper, Cain told him. And you're going to need it. One night, after another exhausting fight, Jamal sat alone in the locker room. An old man with a scar across his cheek approached him quietly. You fight like Michael's son, the man said. Jamal's head snapped up. You knew my father? The man nodded. We fought side by side. He was the best fighter I ever saw. But he wasn't killed in a street fight like Cain says, he was murdered. And Cain knows who pulled the trigger. Before Jamal could ask more, the man slipped him a folded note and disappeared into the shadows. Inside the note were 3 words: trust no one. That night, Cain congratulated Jamal on another win, slipping him an envelope of cash. You've made me a fortune, kid. But don't get any ideas. You're mine, body and soul. Jamal stared at him coldly. For the first time, Cain noticed the fire in his eyes, not of obedience, but of defiance. In his bedroom, Jamal opened the note again, replaying the old man's words. If his father was murdered, then Cain's empire was built on blood, and Jamal made a silent promise to himself: he would keep fighting. He would rise higher. He would gain Cain's trust, and then, when the time was right, he would tear everything Cain built to the ground. The next day, Cain announced Jamal's biggest fight yet, not just against another fighter, but against a foreign champion, a brutal killer brought in from overseas. The fight would make Jamal an international underground star. Cain leaned close, whispering with a sly smile, win this one, and the world will know your name. But lose, and you'll die like your father. Jamal's jaw tightened. This fight wasn't just for survival anymore. It was war.